Turning now to a new campaign trail being explored here in the city. We don't even know yet when the election is going to take place, but already there are candidates lining up to run for public advocate. And tonight, if you can believe it, more than half a dozen are gathered in Lower Manhattan for one of the first candidate forums of the campaign. And that's where we find our Bobby Cusa. Good evening, Bobby.
Good evening, Grace. Well, we are just a week out from an election, and already we have another big race on our hands with a crowded field of candidates seeking to become the city's next public advocate. There are 7 here at this candidate forum in Lower Manhattan, being sponsored by Citizens Union and AARP New York, and many more who are interested. In fact, there were at least 3 here tonight who complained about being shut out of this event. Now, this is, of course, the office being vacated by the current public advocate, Letitia James, who was elected state attorney general and will assume that office in January. Among those seeking to replace her are several elected officials themselves. That includes Assemblyman Michael Blake and Danny O'Donnell, City Councilman Raphael Espinal, Eric Ulrich, and Jumaane Williams. They are all here tonight, as well as Manhattan attorney Don Smalls and activist Nomiki Konst. This just got underway a few minutes ago, and all 7 candidates were able to give a short introduction.
You can give a voice to the most vulnerable New Yorkers. People feel like they're not represented by the lobbyists, by the corporations, by the politicians, by the powerful interests. That's what I have always been about.
This is all I've done. Try to attempt to make transformational change in the power structure and uplift people's voices who feel their voices aren't lifted up enough.
Jumaane Williams has to be considered perhaps the most formidable candidate. He just ran for lieutenant governor and did surprisingly well in that statewide race, though in a losing effort. He's also already racked up a number of endorsements, including from elected officials and from the Working Families Party, who all held a big press conference for him earlier today. Now, we should also mention a number of city council members have introduced a bill to eliminate the office of the public advocate altogether, and the city council speaker, Corey Johnson, was asked about that today. He did not rule out the possibility that he might support that bill. As for the timeline, we mentioned Tish James becomes Attorney General. She'll be sworn in January. There will then be a special election for this office sometime likely in late February. That's the latest for now. I'm Bobby Cusa. Grace, back to you.
Thanks, Bobby. So I have to ask about that bill. I'm wondering if the candidates are being asked to weigh in on the office just as a concept, if they think it should remain there. Is that something that's come up at the forum tonight?
Not yet. I'm sure they will be speaking out about that at some point. But Betsy Gotbaum, who was public advocate herself and is now the head of Citizens Union, was very forceful in her opening remarks about the need for the office, the fact that it's prescribed in the city charter, and the functions that it provides for the city.
Right. Seems like the biggest advocates for the public advocate's office are former public advocates. Mayor de Blasio.
Public advocates, that's right.
Mayor de Blasio among them. I have to say, I'm having flashbacks to the mayor's race in 2013 when I look at that crowded field of candidates. I know the folks that are out there tonight represent only part of the field for public advocate. I mean, Jumaane Williams aside, because clearly he has a lot of edge going into this race, how are these candidates going to get people to pay attention to this race, to come out to the polls and distinguish themselves in such a crowded field?
Yeah, and you know, New York elections have notoriously low turnout. This midterm election maybe being an exception, but an election in February for just one office, even it's a citywide race, but you have to expect very low turnout. So I think because of that, maybe having support from some of these unions and some of these advocacy groups could help turn out voters. But yeah, it's going to be very hard. Eric Ulrich made a joke about the fact that he's probably the only Republican in the field, and that alone might actually give him an edge in what will be a very crowded field. And I should note, it will be a nonpartisan election. This is not like a primary. In fact, every candidate will have to come up with their own ballot line for the special election in February.
Thank you so much, Bobby. It is time for a break now.